Yeah, hello everyone, Nevin Reacts here and welcome back to another video. So yeah, sorry I didn't upload anything cause, well, I couldn't think of anything to record, and while I was, so the reason why, so yeah, that's the reason why I didn't upload anything until today when I found something interesting to react to. So yeah, today I'm going to be reacting to the Real Battle Royale Nazino Island Tragedy 1933 by the channel Simple History. And as we all know, they make great content, and yeah, I can't wait to see what this is like. From the name Nazino, I assume it's it's a Japanese island, but in the thumbnail it showed Soviet Russian. So let's see where this will go, shall we? Like and okay, 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Video is brought to you by our sponsor, NordVPN. Have you ever received a suspicious link or accidentally opened up a web address and allows you to use public Wi-Fi? Open the map and pick one of the 5100s bandwidth throttling. You get a 2-year plan plus 1 additional month with the real-life Battle Royale.
Actually, it's actually very loud. Let me just adjust the volume a bit. That should be good.
Nazino, Russia, 1933.
Oh, so it is a Russian island. But he said Nazina. Is the O pronounced as an A?
May 18, 1933, on the direct orders of Stalin himself, 5,000 men and women arrived at Nazino, a small isolated island on the river Orb, deep in the remote and barren wilderness of western Siberia. Within a matter of weeks, 4,000 of them would either just die from exposure, disappear, drown, or be eaten. This was the real-life Battle Royale. The Soviet Union was a miserable place to live during this period, with severe food shortages which resulted in millions of people dying of starvation. Any form of criticism of the state was dealt with brutally, where the offender would probably get a life sentence and be sent to a gulag, where they would literally be worked to death carrying out hard labor. Stalin's purge of the so-called socially harmful elements of society mainly concentrated on certain groups, such as the Cossacks, ethnic minorities, intellectuals, and the kulaks, who were peasants who owned their own land and were sometimes hesitant in contributing a share of their goods to the common collective. Even the armed forces were not exempt, as mass purges were commonplace, which normally resulted in the...
Yeah, in a dictatorship with secret police, whether you're rich, poor, famous, or just some ordinary person, you're not safe from the secret police.
Execution of its most experienced officers. The Nazino settlers also included a wide cross-section of urban society, not just criminals and vagrants, but also regular workers, children, and pensioners. Many were taken simply because they had failed to obtain an internal passport. However, others included a party member who had stepped out of her apartment without her party card, a worker buying cigarettes who had left his passport at home, a 12-year-old girl waiting at a train station while her mother bought bread, as well as the pregnant wife of a naval officer and a 103-year-old man. None of them were pioneers ready to settle and farm a harsh and unforgiving land. In February 1933, the head of the secret police, Genrik Yagoda, and the head of the Gulag labor camp system, Matvey Berman, got together and approached Stalin with a plan to resettle 2 million of these people into what was thought to be the vast area of untapped natural resources in Siberia and Kazakhstan. However, the environment was harsh and extremely cold, and much of the area was tundra.
Yeah, Siberia was not a great place you want to be sent to during Soviet Russia. And sorry if I haven't been commentating a lot. It's because I actually don't know anything about this, other than the fact that this inspired the TV show Squid Game. And I always wondered, why did they name that TV show Squid Game? It makes no sense. Sure, it's a life or death game show, but what What do squids have to do with it? Comment it down below in the comments if you know why they named the show Squid Game, even though it doesn't have any squids in it.
And frozen all year round. Even when it did thaw out in the summer, the ground became swampy and infertile and unsuitable for any kind of agriculture. To add to this, the air would have been thick with mosquitoes. One of the areas that was chosen.
Mosquitoes. Absolute worst. I hate them I'm not scared of them, but I hate them just as much as spiders. Spiders I'm scared I fear and hate them, but mosquitoes, I just hate them because of how annoying they are.
And for the project was Nazino Island, which was on the north bank of the Orb River, deep inside the Siberian wilderness. The island was only ever visited by the local Ostyak people from the nearby village of Nazino to gather tree bark to use as firewood. It was relatively small, measuring just 2 miles or about 3.2 kilometers long and 650 yards or 595 meters wide, and mostly made up of inhospitable swampland. Hunting and foraging was going to be nearly impossible. Many thousands of the so-called undesirables, which also included hardened and petty criminals by now, were being held in overcrowded prisons in Moscow and Leningrad. So, in the spring of 1933, they were loaded into all sorts of railway carriages, which included cattle trucks, and began a 10-day journey to Tomsk, where the half-completed transit camps were waiting for them. During the journey, gangs of criminals systematically beat up and robbed their fellow passengers.
Oh, come on. Why?
On May 14, 1933, after the prisoners had been processed and selected, 5,000 of these settlers set off on their journey to Nazino Island. They were loaded onto river barges that had only been designed to carry timber down the River Orb and were only given 200 grams of bread each a day for the 5-day journey. By the time
Jeez. Truly was horrible to be a Soviet prisoner.
they had arrived at Nazino, 30 people had died on the barges, and a third of them were too weak to even stand. The authorities had failed to provide any form of shelter on the island, nor any basic tools or building materials to construct basic shelters against the elements. On their first night there, it snowed heavily, and almost 300 people had frozen to death by the morning from exposure. This happened every night, and some people were actually burned alive from laying too close to the campfires that they had made to try to keep themselves warm. 20 tons of flour had been left on the island for the settlers, but straight away fights broke out when guards tried to distribute it daily, and they ended up firing at the mob to break them up. As no ovens were available there to make bread or anything else, the settlers either ate the flour raw or mixed it with dirty water from the river, and this led to an outbreak of dysentery. Daily fighting soon broke out over whatever resources were still available, and killings became commonplace, and the bodies were robbed of any possessions they had, including money and especially gold fillings and crowns from their mouths. To add to all this misery,
Jeez. Squid Game's got nothing on this.
9 days later, another 1,200 settlers arrived on the island, and very quickly groups of rival gangs started to form, and murder and extortion became commonplace. In desperation, many of the settlers tried to construct crude rafts out of pieces of wood that they could find to flee the island, but they were so basic that they were not fit for purpose, and they just sank. So they simply drowned in the ice-cold river, and their bodies were washed up on the shore along the river.
I can't imagine dying that way. When you see people like being mentioned of this and say they would often say, I can imagine. No, you can't imagine it, because nowadays you might say, if you're like, you might say, when you look at capital punishment, like for example, lethal injection or hanging, you might say, that's terrible. No, it's not compared to this. At least that is quick and painless, but these are just days of suffering.
orb. If they did manage to reach the opposite bank of the river alive, the guards would go and hunt them down for sport, and no questions were ever asked as to what had happened to them. Because of the lack of sanitation, there was soon an outbreak of typhus, which many succumbed to because of their already weak state of health. But far worse was to come, because within a week, a doctor discovered cases of cannibalism beginning to appear on the island as people became desperate to find something to eat. It started out with cutting slices of flesh from the dead corpses and cooking them, but then progressed to killing people who were so weak or were so close to death, and therefore so vulnerable and unable to defend themselves. When one survivor was asked if he had eaten human flesh while on the
Weren't there wasn't there like any wild animals on the island? I know there are probably lots of people and not a lot of animals, but surely there had to be some.
island, he replied that he had only eaten livers and hearts, and then only from people who were dying anyway. Another incident involved a young woman who was having a relationship with one of the guards. When he was not around to protect her, some men tied her to a tree, killed her, and cut off everything from her body that they could eat. Despite the many arrests and executions by the guards, the situation was brought under control when, after a damning internal report was submitted, it was decided to abandon the settlement on Nazino Island only after a month after it had been set up. Approximately 1/3 of the settlers had died, while another third were reported as missing, possibly escaped, drowned, or eaten. Just over 2,000 people had survived. Unknown
This is literal hell.
to the settlers at the time, all of their hardships had been in vain, as back in Moscow there had been a change in policy, and Stalin and the authorities had decided to cancel the whole settler experiment program. There was an official investigation into the Nazino incident, but the findings were never made public at the time. Several local officials and guards were given short prison sentences or dismissed from office. In the mid-1980s, the human rights group Memorial made the details of their findings public after they had investigated the episode themselves. A memorial cross was placed on the island in 1993 to remember those who had lost their lives there. The inscription on its plaque reads, "To the victims of political repression, 1933 to 1993. And every June, the local villagers from Nazino cross the river and place a wreath on the memorial.
Jeez, I wonder what the place looks like. Now I'm gonna have to search on Google Images and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah. Is there anything more? Nope, it's just an image of the island. So yeah, jeez. Squid Games got nothing compared to this. This is just brutal. Leaves me sick. In a metaphorical way, obviously. Just makes you sick. But then again, it also shows, like, the cruelty of reality, I mean, yeah. So, I literally can't think of anything else to say, really. I'm at a loss for words. So, yeah. If you like this video, please hit that like, subscribe. Check out my Facebook page, link is in the description. And as I said in the last video, I'm only 4 to 5 subscribers away to reaching 100 subscribers. And once I reach 100 subscribers, I will post a video of myself trying to do the spicy noodle challenge. I will eat an entire cup of spicy noodles and try not to drink anything. If I fail, then my parents will dump an ice bucket on me. So yeah, if you want to see me arrive in pain from the spiciness, go hit that subscribe button. Share this video and have them hit that subscribe button. So yeah, that's all for today. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!